Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Sonic DNA Doctor McFarlands IR and Rig Pack overview. And in this video, we're going to be listening to some audio examples from each group of the impulse responses and just listen to the slight variations of each change as we go through them. So let's take a look at the Headrush Gig Board. And the first rig I have called up is the Sonic DNA Plexi Dock. And this does have a Marshall 1969 plexiglass 100 watt head. And right now the normal and the high volumes are at 50%. So we are going to get a little bit of a crunch tone from those settings. If you want it cleaner, you probably want to bring it down to around the 20 to 30% range. If you want it more hot, definitely bring it up to like 60 to 70% range, just depending on the level of dirt that you want in your rig. Now, I created these rigs so you have a good starting point when you're recording or just coming up with the parts for your band and getting ready for your live gig. So with that in mind, I do have a compressor in there called the Gray Comp, and it's very easy settings. You got sustain and level. And then we have a white boost for some overall like tonal shaping, a black op for a good classic distortion sound, a graphic EQ. So if you need to filter out some frequencies either before the amp or after the amp, you can do that. I have a little bit of a high mid cut, which is around 2K at a -2 dB, a little boost around 3.5, and then a little boost in the gain. So not a whole lot going on there, but it does help to shape the overall tone before your guitar hits the amplifier. And then we have a tremolo, an air delay, which can be any other delay that you want. It could be tape echo, dyne delay, which is a digital delay, or anything like that. And we do have an air reverb, which is adding a little bit of room sound, so your direct sound is not so dry. Now, I know when you have a microphone in front of a speaker, you don't necessarily have a lot of room sound there, but at least this way you do have that option if you want to add some space to your overall sound. And we're going to go ahead and look at the impulse responses. So let's go to group A here. So what I'm going to do is just click on the first file, then use my wheel on the left side of the gig board to scroll through the different options. Okay, so that's going to make it easy for us to go from one file to the next. So here's a basic sound that I have on the rig. And you should hear a little bit of that room sound poking through. And this is just a greenback speaker with a 57 100% and a Royer 121 100%. So this is like both mics are being balanced on the fader all the way up to the 0 position on the mixing board, and this is a good overall sound. Alright, it's not overly bass heavy, it's not overly bright, because that 121 is adding some girth to the bottom end there. Now if I go to B, now this is going to bring down the 121 by 50%, so we're getting more 57 in the signal than the 121. Okay, so it does thin it out a little bit. And then if we go to C, the 121 is now down all the way. Now, just the nature of the 57, it doesn't have a lot of low end anyways, and it naturally rolls off some of the top end while also boosting some upper mids. So if you like that sound, that's fine. But if you want a little bit more bass response, then I definitely suggest doing the full 100%, 100%. Because really the combination of those two mics are everywhere. I mean, you see them in so many studios. There's even a mic clip that you can buy that can hold a 57 and a 121 on the same clip, and that way you can just move them around and not have to worry about phase issues or, you know, moving the mics in and out from the speaker. So it's really, really cool if you want to check that out. All right, now D is back to 100%, 100% for both mics. And then the 57 is now going to go down to 50% on the AE file. And then 0% on the AF file. Now, to me, just the 121 by itself is a little too dark. So if you like that sound but just want a little bit more brightness, then bring in the 50% 57 mic. So there's your options for A as far as the on-axis variations. And now when we get to AG, now we take the 57, just like I said in the other video, we take that 57 that was right dead onto the cap and we move it 45 degrees so it's off axis. That is going to allow more low end on the 57 and smooth out some of those highs. So let's listen to that. 121, 50%. And then 121, 0. All right, so just real fast, let's compare the 57 off axis to the 57 on axis that's all by itself. So we're going to have to go to AI and go all the way back to AC. So here's AC with the 57 on axis. And here's the 57 off axis. All right, so I definitely hear a huge difference there. There is a lot more low end and smoother highs with that off axis variation, which is really, really cool. So if you get that concept for the A group, everything else is going to be the same in the other groups as far as the mic levels and also the on or off axis variation. So now we've mainly been dealing with the greenback, which has a little more upper mid action. And when we go to the B section, now we're going to be dealing with the Vintage 30 speaker, which is a little more scooped in my opinion. And if you compare them back to back, they definitely complement each other when you play them both at the same time. But each speaker by itself definitely has its own little characteristics. So let's listen to the 5A group with the 57, 121, 100%. Okay, so already I hear a lot more bass response, a little bit of scoop mids, and maybe not as much high-end bite, which is cool. Now we're going to bring down the 121, 50%. And then all the way down to 0. So already I can tell that the 57 on the Vintage 30 does have a little bit more low end response. So if you like that sound, then don't choose the A group because the greenback has a little bit more bite and less low end. And you may want to choose the Vintage 30. So I'm trying to give you the concepts to think about so you don't get totally lost in all these different variations. It's like just choose the speaker that you like and then choose the mic combination that you prefer. All right, so now we're back to 100%, 100%. And now the 57 has gone down by 50%. And now it's all the way down. So I like the 121 on the Vintage 30 by itself. It has a natural sound to it, not too much highs, not too much lows, just very smooth sounding, which could be good for jazz or anything like that. Okay. Now on to the off-axis versions. Here's 100% on both mics. Let's go ahead and go down to the 57 off axis just by itself. Now let's go to the 57 on BC. That's back on axis. Okay, so the on axis definitely has more bite. Off axis has smoother highs, a little bit more low end, and so on, just like the A group there. Group C is going to be a greenback 421. So now we're replacing the 57 with a 421, which is a Sennheiser MD 421. And I'll put a picture of that on the screen here. Then we still have the Royer 121, okay? Now the 421 definitely has a lot more upper mid bite to it, so it's going to help you poke out through the mix a little bit more, but I'll still retain that low end that the mic naturally has. 121 down 50%. And then the 121 down to 0. All right, here's the off axis. I hear a lot of low end in that one. All right, cool. This is pretty fun. Now, when we get to the D group, we have the same setup, but now we swapped back to the vintage 30 instead of using the greenback. I definitely hear a lot more low end there, a little bit of a scooped mid sound. Let's go to a off-axis version. All right, great. The E group is going to be a greenback with a 57 and a vintage 30 with a 121. So now we've introduced both speakers, and the 57 is on one speaker and the 121 is on the other speaker. So when we get to the F group, we're going to swap that. So the 57 is now on the vintage 30, and then the greenback has the 121. So let's go ahead and listen to the E group first. Okay, here's the off axis on EG. And let's go down to off axis with the 57 at 50%. All right, here's the F group. And just like I said, the speakers are swaps. Now the greenback has the 121, 57 is on the vintage 30. 57 goes down to 50%. 0. So that's just the 121 on the greenback. Let's move to the G group. So now the 421 is in there. And here's the 421 off axis. All right, great. Let's go down to H, which has the greenback 121 and vintage 30 421. All right, and let's go down to the off axis version. Now, I is going to start the greenback and vintage 30 speakers, but both are going to have the 57 on it. So check this out. 50% on the vintage 30. Here's 50% with the greenback 57 down. All right, here's off axis. And just one of the 57s is off axis. The other one is still center cap. All right, here's J with the 421s. So now technically we're moving the speakers up or down in the mix because both mics are the same, right? So here's the 421 greenback down a little bit. Vintage 30 is up all the way. All right, very cool. And this is the 121 on both speakers. So here's the L group with the... Now the L group starts the max IRs, which has the maximum amount of the bass and highs. And that's just what Greg calls his max treatment. Okay, and these sound really, really good. I like that. So, and these are just all the mic combinations at 100%. So we have the 57 and the 121. Here's the same thing on a vintage 30. And here's the 421. Definitely feel that low end coming in there. All right, here's a greenback and a vintage 30. Here's a greenback and a vintage 30 swapped with the 121 57. Okay, here's a 121 and 421. All right, very cool. And then 421, 121. And then 121, 421 swapped on different speakers. 57s on both speakers. 421s on both speakers. And 121s on both speakers. All right, and that is all the different combinations, guys. So it's pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of variations in there. So let's go ahead and go to the Sonic DNA Recto, which is a rectifier. I do have a tread plate moderate in there with the gain at 62%. And now the presence, you can either have that higher or lower, just depending on the type of guitar you have. If you have a single coil bass guitar, you may want to bring down that presence. If you have a humbucker and you want a little bit more bite, you might want to bring that up. So for now, I want to bring it down a little bit just because I know the type of guitar I'm playing. So it's a very metal, hard rock kind of sound. I'm going to take out the air filter, which is like an auto wall kind of thing. Okay, a little pig squeal for you. I like those. Here's what it sounds like with it totally dry with no delay and reverb. All right, very cool. Here's the reverb by itself. So once again, just gives you a little bit more space. Not a lot of mix, not a lot of time. The size is about medium. One trick I do have in there is I turn the color down so all the high end on the reverb is not splashing around. And I do have a dyne comp on this one. So it's compressing the sound a little bit. And I do have a green JRC in there, so let's turn that off. So you can hear that the JRC just tightens up the sound, as well as pushing the mid-range just a little bit more. Now the graphic EQ, this is not something that you have to have, but I am scooping a little bit of the 2K, boosting the 3.5, and adding more gain to the overall signal. Right now the IR is on a 421 kind of deal. We can definitely go in and change it to something else. And just depending on which group you prefer, as far as like different mic combinations, it is going to change the sound a little bit. So here's back to the E group. And here's the D group. Okay, here's some off-axis variations. Okay, and it all really depends on how it sounds in the full band mix. Let's go ahead and go to a clean group here. I got some tremolo going on from the amplifier itself because I am using a Black Lux Vibe, which is a Fender Vibrolux. Turn the JRC off. we got some pitch delay and reverb going on. And that's more of like a slapback kind of sound on the delay, which is cool. And we got the comp and EQ. And once again, the EQ is now boosting some mids, because with the Fender amp, you're kind of scooping the mids anyway. So now with the graphic EQ, we're boosting back in a little bit of mid and cutting some of the low mids there, okay? And we got Black Op. Okay, that one's pretty cool. I'm going to go to the wash. So I have some scenes set up on here as well. The first two rigs are just on and off with the different pedals. And there's the Recto, so you can cock it with the air filter or auto wall and so on. In the clean, we also just have some on and off pedals, but the last two rigs with the wash, we have a dry sound. Dry as in just a little bit of delay in there. And then damp is going to add in some shimmer, some chord wham, and more reverb. And then soaked is going to do the auto swell kind of thing. And if you want to go in and change the parameters of the reverb or delays or something, you can do that. Now the last rig is a dual amplifier option with a tweed bass, and I do have it set to fairly clean, and then a Soldano extended range. So check this out. We go to the clean scene. And then we got push with a delay, so the green GRC comes on and our delay comes on. And then we got scream. So there's just different levels of dirt and tonal options that you have in that one. All right, guys, so what do you think about this pack? Leave me your thoughts down in the comment section. And be sure to subscribe and click the bell on this channel, so that way every time we come out with new content for you guys, you'll be up to date on all that. And we really had a lot of fun making this concept come to life, and we had many different late night conversations about what we should do and the different combinations and how it all works out. So thanks for all you guys who have already purchased this pack, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of mileage out of these as you start recording in your own studios or playing in your own band and getting ready for your own gigs that should be coming up pretty soon, hopefully. So I will have all the links down in the description, so you can go to the website and go ahead and get your rig pack for yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram, and we will be sure to get with you promptly. So I am Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.